has been about. And I've asked others on those posts, like, what does inner child work mean to you? And Jeff, I think there's a lot of confusion about what inner child work is. So what is it to you? And do you bring that to your client work, and are people ready
Yeah.
for it?
It's actually interesting. I run this workshop with my colleague Lauren Yee called Your Future's Where Your Fun Is. And what we do for staff, which is really challenging at times for them, is we ask them what did they love to do as a kid. And we then break down the play values that represent that. So for example, my colleague Lauren loves to play, she loved to play sardines as a kid. And sardines is reverse hide and seek. It's where someone hides and everyone looks for that person. And when someone finds that person, they hide with them. And then they pack in like sardines. It's amazing. Don't do it during this time because social distancing. But when you can, even do this as adults, it's amazing because it's now 8 people in a corner being like, be quiet. The person's coming. It's amazing, right?
Oh, that sounds fun.
It's so much fun, right? You can do it as a kid. You can do it with adults. It's amazing. But when I asked her, what did she love about sardines? And she goes, I love that it was creative. I love that it was collaborative. And I love that it provided connection. So we identified those play values and then we're like, what are some things that either I'm doing now that have those play values, or what could I be doing, right? What are I met someone once that told me she loved to pretend she was a teacher and she would come up with lesson plans when she was a kid and come up with classmates that she could like order around. And I was like, what are you doing now about it? And she's like, oh, what am I doing now about it? I want to do something like that. I need to coordinate more events. And she just started thinking of these things. So I think that part of the inner child work of like, how do I tap into something that resembles what I did as a kid? Maybe I'm not painting like I did as a kid, but I'm creating because that is the value underneath that. So I think that's something that is really important to do. But then I think it's the other part of like nurturing that inner child. It's 2 things. It's one of really paying attention to your inner critic and recognizing your inner critic is separate from you. And I can get into all the steps to do that. But because the reason you can't hear your inner child right now is because your inner critic is so loud. And one exercise that I do, and I won't do the whole inner critic part of the exercise, but whenever my inner critic shows up, I write down what my inner critic is saying to me, all the mean things it's saying, like, oh, you suck. You're always going to be alone. You're the worst. You're going to be broke, all these things. And not only do I then name Gargamel and then respond to it, but then I take those same things that I just wrote down on a piece of paper and then I flip them. And I'm like, oh, you're always going to be alone. No, I'm actually surrounded by people that love me. Oh, you're going to be broke. No, I actually have an abundance and I'm doing really well. Like I flip each and every one of the negative comments and I start saying those to myself. And that actually empowers my inner child to show up more. Because when your inner child shows up, because it's that whisper voice that's like, you can do it. You got this. And you're like, you just need to spend a little bit more time being bored in order to hear that inner child, because the inner child is always ready to play. They're just waiting for you to be ready. And then they're always ready.
I love that. And I love that you brought up the inner critic. And, I don't know exactly when that shows up in kiddos. I would guess kind of middle school.
Yeah, well, it even shows up earlier because I say a lot of times why adults don't play, and it's the 148,000 no's. By the time you reach the age of 18, you've heard the word no 148,000 times. And in relation to yes, you've probably heard the word yes 8 to 10,000 times. So you have that, and then you have adults shitting on you all the time. Like, you should do this, you should do that. They're telling you at 6 what you should do. And you're like, I'm 6. Like, why are you telling me what should I do with the rest of my life, right? And then you get to your teenage years where like media is constantly telling you you're not enough. So you're dealing with all of this stuff that it's such a revolutionary, rebellious act to play, to do something weird, like start a podcast, like create a video, like, I'm going to put a costume on and dance in my house. Like just simply following the weird things that are in your head that you're like, this would be kind of fun. To do that is such a rebellious act because everything in society is telling you not to. It's telling you to be serious. It's telling you to buy more stuff. And it's just like, man, if you could just block that out for a moment, your inner child has all the answers that you've been looking for.
It is weird, isn't it? And I remember when I was